The storm raged as the group of travelers stumbled upon the abandoned village, their cars broken down by the heavy rain. They were strangers to one another, each with their own reason to be far from home. Sarah, an investigative journalist. Luke, a desperate man running from his past. Emily, a grieving mother. And Jack, a lone drifter with nowhere left to go. The village, known as Hollow Creek, wasn't marked on any map. It seemed as though time had forgotten it, leaving the place in eerie silence, its buildings decaying but still standing. The air was unnaturally still, thick with a sense of foreboding. Despite the storm, the village's streets were hauntingly quiet. Without a choice, the group sought shelter in the old inn at the center of the village. Inside, the inn was strangely preserved, though it reeked of mildew and neglect. The faded portraits on the walls, depicting families in outdated clothing, seemed to watch them. An unsettling tension hung in the air. They tried to make small talk, but the whispers grew louder, as if the very walls were speaking to them. "It's probably the wind," Sarah muttered, trying to break the silence. But Emily, clutching her son's old toy, felt something wasn't right. The longer they stayed, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. Every flicker of light made Emily's heart race, and every shadow seemed to move. Luke, unable to shake the feeling of being watched, tried to calm himself, but his nerves were fraying. The first night passed uneasily, but when morning came, something was off. The village seemed even more deserted. The once crumbling streets appeared freshly swept, and the windows in the houses, though broken, looked as if someone had recently opened them. As they ventured deeper into the village, the air grew colder. Jack was the first to hear the voice. "Get out," it whispered from the trees, barely audible over the howling wind. His face paled. "Did you hear that?" They all paused, straining their ears, but the whispers stopped as quickly as they had started. The group pressed on, now feeling the weight of something unseen pressing against them. It wasn't until they reached the village square that the full horror of the place became clear. The ground was covered in freshly disturbed earth, graves that seemed far too new for a village that had supposedly been abandoned for decades. A voice broke the silence, a shrill, mournful cry. Sarah turned to see a figure in the distance, a woman in old-fashioned clothes, standing at the edge of the square. Her eyes were wide and empty, and her mouth twisted into a silent scream. The truth hit them like a wave. The villagers hadn't just vanished. They had been claimed by something dark, something that had never truly left.